Mhm. Hello students, we have started fine grained parallelism in last class, and in previous class we have seen loop interchange. Now the next technique in fine grained parallelism is scalar expansion. So objective of this scalar expansion is also to achieve fine-grained parallelism. So last time we discussed what is fine-grained parallelism, and here we want to execute the smaller entity in parallel. Now to understand this technique, scalar expansion, I would like to take one very simple example. Suppose we have to swap two vector variable. So for swapping two vector variable, I will write a program with loop. Say this is my program. Do I is equal to 1 to n, and inside that I would write t is equal to a of I. A of I is equal to B of I, and then B of I is equal to T, and this would be the end of this loop. Okay, now suppose this is statement S1, S2 and statement S3. Now this is a very simple program to swap two vector variable, and every one of you have written this type of program whenever you learn your first programming language. So just observe this program carefully. In this program we are running this loop how many times? N number of times, because here this loop index is going from 1 to n. So each of this instruction will be executing n number of times. Now first instruction is t is equal to a of I. So first I will get the ith value of variable a, which is a vector variable, in one of the temporary variable. Then I put b of I in first iteration. B of I would be equal to 1. So b of 1 would be copied into a of 1, and then this temporary variable which contains value of a of 1 will be copied into b of 1. So this thing we have to go do for n number of times. So array variable a and b, which is having n values, will be swapped. Now we have to see whether we can achieve fine-grained parallelism in this program, whether we can execute this in parallel or whether we can vectorize this program. Now answer to this question will be able to give only after getting its dependence graph. So next is we'll try to get its dependence graph. Okay, so here we have three statements. So in dependence graph for this loop we'll have three nodes. So one for each instruction. So S1, S2 and S3. So three statements are there. So independence graph will be having three nodes, and each node represent one instruction. Now edges in this graph represent dependence. So how many edges we need to add into this dependence graph for this loop? First, very clearly you can see that there is a dependence from S1 to S2 due to this common variable. A of I is on right side of first instruction S1, and same variable a of I is on left side of statement S2. So this is a dependence, and this type of dependence is NT dependence. It is loop independent NT dependence. So in first iteration a of 1 would be used in S1, and in second instruction S2 of first iteration same a of 1 is defined. So we'll be having one edge from S1 to S2 to represent this dependence because of variable a. and this dependence type is anti-dependence. Why anti-dependence? Because first variable is used and then it is defined. So that's why it is anti-dependence. Now source and sink of this dependence both lies in same iteration. That's why it is loop independent anti-dependence. Okay, so first dependence is because of vector variable A and its type is loop independent anti-dependence from S1 to S2. Now by similar logic, we'll be having dependence from S2 to S3 also, because here B of I is on right side, here B of I is on left side. So we'll be having one more anti-dependence, and that is from S2 to S3. And type of this dependency is also anti-dependence, because first variable is used and then it is defined. So it is anti-dependence. Source and sink both are in same iteration. That's why loop independent anti-dependence. Now, is there any other dependence? Yes. This variable t and this variable t, both are same variable. So in S1, value of t is assigned. In S3, it is used. So there will be one dependence from S1 to S3. Because of which variable? Because of variable t. So here t is defined and then used. So first defined, then used. Okay. So that is read after write. Okay. Read after write. So this is true dependence. So because of t, you will be having here a dependence, and this dependence is true dependence, and also it is loop independent dependence, because source and sink both are in the same iteration. So this dependence represent dependence due to t, okay, where first it is defined and then it is used. So it is loop independent true dependence from S1 to S3. Now you have one more dependence from S3 to S1. Okay, and this dependence is because of variable t. Here t is used and here t is defined, and if you consider the first iteration, in third instruction t is used, and immediately after that in next instruction, which is the first instruction of second iteration, here t is defined. So here it is a case of write after read. So third instruction of first iteration is reading value of memory location t, and immediately after that in first instruction of second iteration, that memory location, there you are performing write operation. So this is write after read. So this dependence is anti-dependence. So this is anti-dependence, and here source and sink are in different iteration. Source is in first iteration, sink is in second instruction. So this is loop dependent anti-dependence. So this is the fourth one. After that, you have one more dependence, that is from S1 to S1, self-dependence. Because in first iteration, value of t is written, and in second iteration, again value of t is written. So this is third type of dependence, which is also known as output dependence. So this is output dependence, because a variable is, same variable is written two times, in first iteration and also in second iteration, in third iteration. In every iteration, its value of same variable you are changing. So this is output dependence, and source and sink are in different iteration, and that's why this is loop dependent output dependence. Okay, then one more dependence is from S1 to S3, and from S1 to S3 you have loop dependent true dependence. S1 of first iteration is defining T and S3 of second iteration is using it. So this is true dependence. Source and sink are in different iterations. So this is loop dependent true dependence. So in all total, in this loop, you have 6 different type of dependence. Out of these 6 dependence, these 2 dependence are because of variable A and B, and remaining 4 are because of this scalar variable T. Now you have to copy value of one vector into another vector, so you cannot avoid this 2 dependence. This has to be there. This will be there. Whatever change you will do in this loop. But can we avoid other kind of dependence? That we have to see. Now this 4 dependence are because of T, and here if you see this dependence which is from S1 to S3, because same variable is used in instruction 1 and instruction 3. Statement 1 and statement 3 of this iteration. So this cannot be avoided because same variable you have to use in one variable you will get the value of A of I, and same value you have to copy in B. So this also cannot be avoided. Now all loop dependent dependencies are because you are using scalar variable T. Because in every iteration you are using the same scalar variable, okay, because you don't want to use too many variables. So because it is holding only temporary value, so you are keeping one variable as a scratch pad, and in every iteration you are getting value of A there, storing it temporarily, and then that value is copied into B. Okay, so now in place of using scalar variable for copying the value temporarily, if you use vector variable, then can we avoid some of the dependence? That we have to see. So we'll try to replace this scalar variable by a vector variable. So if we replace scalar by vector, our program would be, so suppose we have taken this $t as a vector variable. So in first iteration, $i is equal to A of I, then A of I is equal to B of I, second instruction remains as it is, and then B of I is equal to $i, which actually contains A of I. Okay, so this will be program after replacing scalar T by vector $. Okay, so $. Is just like vector A and B, and in this don't forget to include instruction T is equal to $n, because T is the temporary variable originally used in the program. $t is a compiler generated variable. So it is possible that in the remaining portion of the program after the loop, T may have some use. Okay, so the final value of this vector $t is to be copied into scalar variable T, so that if it has any other use after this loop, so that value can be passed. Okay, now in this program we have to see whether we have all those dependents. So A of I is used here, A of I is written here, so this dependence will be as it is. Then B of I, it's used, and definition is in S2 and S3, so this definition will this dependence will also be there. Then $i is defined here, used here, so this dependence will also be as it is. Now what about this dependence? Output dependence. In first iteration, S1 defines $t of 1. In second iteration, it defines $t of 2. So that variable is different. $1 represent a different memory location, and $2 represent a different memory location. So that is not the same memory location. Okay, so that's why this dependence is removed. Okay, so in this program, you will not be having this loop carried output dependence, because every iteration uses a different memory location, a separate memory location. Similarly, this definition from S3 to S1, because in first iteration you are using one memory location, third instruction of first iteration using a memory location, and same memory location is used by the first instruction of second iteration in the original program. Now in this program, third instruction of first iteration uses $T of 1, and the first instruction of second iteration is using $T 2. So these two are different memory location. So that's why this will also be removed. Okay, so this will not be there. Now similarly, this was because first instruction of first iteration and third instruction of second iteration is sharing common value, a common memory location. So that is also removed because every iteration is using a different memory location. So when we are replacing a scalar variable t by a vector variable $T, in that case every iteration is using a separate memory location. So 3 extra dependencies are removed. Now this is the final dependence diagram for this program, and meaning of this program is same as the original program. Output produced by this program is exactly same as the output produced by the previous program. Now in this dependence graph, you'll see that there are no cycle. First thing. Second thing is there are no loop dependent dependence. All three are loop independent dependence. It means that no iteration is depending on other iteration. So you can parallelize one iteration with another iteration. So you have removed all loop dependent dependence, you have removed all cycle. So it means that now you can vectorize this program. So after vectorization of this loop, you will get instructions T $1 to n is equal to A of 1 to n. Second instruction is A of 1 to n is equal to B of 1 to n. Third would be B of 1 to n is equal to T $1 to n. And then at the end, T is equal to T $n. Okay, so this is a vectorized equivalent program of this original program. So by using this scalar expansion, we have converted a non-vectorized program into a vectorized program. Okay, so with the help of scalar expansion, you can vectorize program. Now, scalar expansion is always safe. You can always apply scalar expansion. In previous technique, which was loop interchange, we have seen that there are some safety condition. So before applying loop interchange, always you have to check for safety condition, and if all safety conditions are fulfilled, then only you will be able to apply loop interchange. Because if some of the safety conditions are not fulfilled, then it is possible that meaning of the program gets changed after loop interchange. Okay, so in scalar expansion, there are no safety condition. Scalar expansion is always safe. Whenever you replace a scalar variable by a vector variable, its meaning remains changed. Its output remains unchanged. Okay, so meaning is same. So that's why scalar expansion is always safe. So you need not to worry about the safety of scalar expansion. But you have to check for profitability, because scalar expansion is not always profitable. Okay, so by using scalar expansion, you can convert a non-vectorized program into vectorized program. So for this, you have to pay some cost. And what is cost? Previously, you were using one scalar variable and which was taking only one word in memory. Now you are using vector variable, so it is taking n words in memory. So more memory is required, and we have seen earlier that if more memory is required, then somehow it also takes more amount of CPU time also to process that. So this program is, if you see this sequential program, this loop with the previous program, original program, then this program will take more time. Okay, so if it is then vectorized, then obviously it will save time if you have sufficient resources. But if you are not having any resource in uniprocessor system, if you execute this program, then this will take more time. Okay, because it is also using more memory. So scalar, after applying scalar expansion, if you will be able to vectorize that program, then you will compensate for that extra cost. But even after scalar expansion, you are not able to vectorize the program, then that programs become more costly than the original program. So always whenever you are applying scalar expansion, you have to check for profitability also, because scalar expansion is not always profitable. Sometimes even after expanding scalar, the program you got cannot be vectorized due to some reason, because it is having multiple dependence. So there are other dependencies as well, because scalar expansion removes only the dependencies which are due to scalar variable. Okay, but due to other variable, all dependence remains same. So because of other variable, if you are not able to vectorize any program, then there is no meaning in doing scalar expansion, or there is no meaning in converting scalar variable into vector variable. So before applying scalar expansion, you have to always check for the profitability. If scalar expansion leads to generation of vectorized program from the non-vectorized program, then only you have to apply scalar expansion, otherwise not. Okay, so in scalar expansion, you need not to worry about the safety, but you have to check for the profitability.